This tutorial is on advanced world design using Minecraft Education Edition. While there's already a wide variety of tutorials that have been made by Microsoft and other educators that help teachers and librarians and even students and kids learn how to make levels in Education Edition, none of them really get at any of the advanced stuff. So when you download Hour of Code 2021, you'll notice that there are restrictions and settings that don't seem to be available for average designers using the world builder or any of the special blocks. This tutorial is all about helping you to learn to use the more advanced functions and uncovering some of the stuff that isn't really well documented or out there about how to design good professional-like worlds with Education Edition. Almost every kid loves Minecraft. In the standard classroom in typical education, a lot of kids are just really checked out and don't want to be there. And you put them in Minecraft and they're already excited. They want to play. They want to be part of the experience. Almost every kid I run into is really into it, and it has this colossal brand name. But it also comes with this downside, is that it has a reputation, is that most kids have encountered Minecraft before, and the way they've encountered it, what they think it is either about killing monsters or other players. So they think of it as survival mode, or they think of it as things like Mineplex or Bed Wars, and then some kids also think that it can be about creative mode and building things. And those are all great ways to think about the game, but they're not really educational so much. But building, I think, can be in its own form, depending how you build and what you do with that. One of the problems is that when you try to design an Education Edition world, kids are coming into it with these perspectives. So, for instance, if the world has the ability to be switched over to creative mode, kids will immediately do that, and they will often ignore whatever prompt. If the challenge is to have them program the robot to go do a task, they'll say, well, I can just do the task now and I can break this block or do this thing. Why would I bother having the robot? And you can tell them, well, the robot could do it a million times and never get tired, but they will still tend to default to the basic modes of the game. They have a lot of trouble wrapping their head around the game being usable for other formats. So this tutorial is partially about getting past this barrier, helping kids focus and making levels that really get them on track. In order to help kids really succeed in using Minecraft and learning to code, we have to do some things with Education Edition to really enable it and empower it. So first, I think we need to inspire and motivate. We have to get kids really excited about, once they learn that it's not about killing zombies and just building a house by hand and they're getting this robot to do things, we still have to keep them hooked and interested. It is also really helpful to have creative constraints. Eliminating distractions is a really, really important way, especially when kids are younger and they have a lot of trouble with attention switching and knowing how to be aware of their own learning process and what's going on around them. This is a really good way we can build it into the architecture of the game to help them remain focused. And that's also part of that is providing scaffolding in a curricular format. So we have the architecture of what's possible in the game, and we also want to help try to build the curricular structure around the experience that they're having with the game, how they're being informed, what they're learning, how they're understanding their learning. All right, first let's go over how we can inspire and motivate better using Education Edition. The Microsoft curated and professionally commissioned levels are great, but they're really not about teachers who want to make something new. So often I start by actually talking to the kids before the computers are even open, because once they jump into the computer, they kind of zone in. It's like the Hypno Toad in Futurama. They can't do anything but look at the screen. And so I use this term screens at 45, which sometimes works, and sometimes it's got to be more like the screen's just barely cracked open so the computers don't go to sleep, and have them look at you. Or look at each other. And sometimes I'll actually meet in a different part of the room where there aren't even the computers yet, so the temptation isn't there. Because what I want to do is ground whatever we're teaching and learning in some sort of real life experience. I want to connect what they're doing on the computers to real things. Now, for our grants, we're often interested in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and I think those are important fields we can connect to. But really, you can ground it in any kind of real world offline experience. So for our most recent series, we were talking about COVID and vaccines and how they work, and the kids were learning about computational applications in medicine. And this actually happened because I asked them what are some of the biggest challenges of our world right now, and what they replied to me was that COVID and disease and health are big problems that we need to face. So we designed a world that would match their interests and needs where they could learn to code. Relevance, I think, is one of the most important things, baking that into your lessons, either formally or informally, as much as you possibly can. Giving kids ownership over what they're learning will help them engage more. Second, the really basic worlds that are either built in to the Education Edition or just what teachers are able to do on their own are really not that good. And there are really, really good powerful world design utilities that already exist. So there are multiple forms of Minecraft if you're not already familiar. There's Education Edition, which is a version of Bedrock, which is colloquially the one that on cell phones and iPads and now actually Chromebooks even for Education Edition. And then Java Edition is the one that's been around for a long time. It's got a massive, insanely powerful community. The Java Edition is so much better for things like world design. It is not easy. It is actually quite difficult. But if you were a teacher and you want to design a really good level that does something complicated and is immersive and interesting, you design it in Java and you convert it over to Bedrock and or Education Edition. They're the same thing. So there are 3 different utilities that I would recommend for this, or 3 different ways you could do this. The first is you can use something called World Edit. It's an add-on, not quite a mod, although it does exist as a mod for the platform called Forge. But you can also add it into a regular vanilla Minecraft install. And World Edit allows you to do things like select areas and draw with brushes and copy and replace and these really advanced sort of visual design. It's like almost like a 3D design editor, but you're kind of the mesoscale because it's first person. You're seeing out of the Minecraft character's view. And that's one of the most powerful ways you can make really impressive worlds. Now, there are tons of tutorials on how to do this. I'm not going to recreate that. You can search YouTube and find a lot of those tutorials to learn it on your own. There's also World Painter, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of like Microsoft Paint, but you're painting a Minecraft world. And this is like a third-person view. It's a faraway view, right? And it's actually one of the more powerful ways that you can use assets. You can create already designed schematics or height maps, and you can import these things and sort of do a global scale design of a world. So if you wanted to, for instance, create an alien planet, like what we've done for our one of our grants, you can design that in World Painter and then import it in. So those are 2 very powerful Java utilities. World Edit is in-game. World Painter is its own standalone software, which is free, by the way, and runs on every platform imaginable. And then the third option is there's a great community already out there. So there's not been a lot built that is available for free for Bedrock. It's all through the marketplace. You have to pay for it and you can't easily transfer it to other people. So not so great. However, websites like Planet Minecraft have an immense number of worlds that are already available and the authors have shared them. They usually love to make this stuff available for other people. Probably at least 50% of this site is open shared material. It's always important to give attribution, but what I found is if you ask somebody if they've made something, if you can use it for your cool classroom experience, they're ecstatic. They love seeing people using their cool stuff. So if you need to find a train or show a galaxy or show these things that would take literally years to make in the Bedrock version where you're placing block by block by block, instead, these are worlds that are made by professionals that are using things like World Edit and World Painter and 3D design tools, and they're creating these massive, insane, awesome, complicated worlds. You can often convert those worlds over as well to make something more impressive. And I really think this is one of the best ways to get kids into it, is you make a world that's really grips their imagination, really helps them immerse their minds in another experience. So I actually already have a tutorial on how to convert a Java world over to a Bedrock or a Education Edition world. There should be a title card link for that happening now, but you can go check that out to learn about it. Okay, the next piece is eliminating distractions. This is a very important component, especially with younger kids where it is easy for them to be distracted and it's hard for them to attention switch and put their focus in the right place. So in the game, there are a number of settings that you can adjust. If you pause any game that you have opened up in it, and once you've launched a level, you can go to settings. And here are some suggestions that I have of things you can turn off. So you go to the game settings. If you put it into adventure mode, this will prevent kids from modifying the world around them. They can't dig or kill zombies or anything like that. And if you set the difficulty to peaceful, it eliminates monsters. There will still be things like sheep and cows and whatever else. But one of the first behaviors I've found of how kids get distracted is they jump into the game and they immediately try to start playing the survival mode. They try to kill everything in sight and they try to destroy stuff to build things. And, while that can be fun, it's not really learning code, which is often what I want to be doing with Education Edition. And then there are some more settings I can do to help them focus on this. Turning on coordinates, I think, is a really important learning piece to it, is that getting that they have a location in the world, and it's actually a piece of math, right? And in math, we have an X, Y, Z. We have coordinates of where we are located. Turning that on and helping them get a sense of like, this is how I'm going to relate to this world, is to think about my location within it, is one of the ways to kind of like make it a little bit more STEM oriented. So friendly fire is like if they punch each other. We don't want kids fighting each other. That's often one of the first things they can do if they can't kill monsters. They will often try to blow stuff up with TNT and burn things down. And then mob loot is like what a bad guy would drop. Mob is not very friendly language. It's basically any creature in the game. So it could be zombies. It could also be sheep. Natural regeneration and drops don't really matter that much. Immediate respawn you can ignore. So the things I've highlighted in yellow there, I think are the most crucial things where kids will get distracted. Now, if you were a teacher and you were hosting a world and you turn all this stuff off, like if you turn it to adventure mode and you turn off friendly fire, that'll be the setting of everybody joining that world that they will inherit. So this is an important component to it. And then also, I actually think it's good to turn on cheats, because teaching kids to type commands is an important learning piece. And actually, to do most of the things you need to do with the robot, those need to be on. Having it be always day is really helpful, because then they can see all the time. And in fact, then turning off the daylight cycle is helpful, so it doesn't become night. Keeping inventory, if your goal is not to try to like play the survival mode of the game, you could have that on. It doesn't really matter that much depending on what mode you're in. If you're trying to program the robot, we actually don't care that much about keeping inventory after you die. And then mob spawning and mob griefing, that means like would a zombie spawn and would like an enderman, which are these like tall, scary guys who teleport around, they pick up blocks. And the term for that in the game is griefing. They're causing you grief. They're destroying stuff. There are also creepers that will explode. Those are the famous green colored monster guys. When they explode, they do a lot of damage. So mob spawning and griefing can really get kids distracted. Having command blocks enabled, I actually think is a really good idea. And I'm going to talk later about how you can control what those do. But having kids learn how to do commands with those is actually pretty computational. They have to type a command, just like a DOS prompt or a run prompt on a real computer. Okay, one of the other things you can do is you can download this thing called Classroom Mode. So it's a supplementary software that Microsoft/Minecraft have put out. It's kind of documented. It's not easy to find. I don't know why they don't publicize it more, but it's a pretty solid piece of software because it introduces a couple of things that are already available in Java Minecraft, but are not available in Education or Bedrock by default. So what you do is the teacher creates a world and they share that world with their whole classroom, and then they launch this classroom mode, and they can actually even put that up on the big TV or projector if they want to, and it gives them some powers. It allows them to pause everybody at once. They can make the world immune from being damaged, and they can also turn stuff off, like make it not possible for TNT to destroy the world. And then more than anything, it shows them where their kids are. You can look at that map. You can see my name there, that little blip. That's where I was when I took this screenshot. And if there were other players, they would show up on that roster. And you can then teleport all the players to you, which is really helpful when you're trying to have a class all go do an activity together. You can teleport them around with you. So this is a really helpful way to have a teacher maintain some sense of what's going on in the global view. Do you want kids working together, or do you want kids building alone? I found that often it is helpful to have kids do an activity alone initially and then do an activity with a group later. But a lot of learning is social, and kids are often much more motivated to work in groups. So what I'm often doing when I'm designing a world is I will have like several sections. So there might be like one of these petri dishes. They might work together to eliminate these are stems of a COVID virus in this case. They might work together to have, say, 3 kids in one petri dish, and then you can have barrier blocks between them so they can't go between petri dishes, and the teacher would then move them around at the beginning of the class session or manually. When you're doing your level design, try to think about how you want to split it up. Do you want it like the default way that if you download Hour of Code 2021, it's super cool, but it's very much intended for one learner, one at a time. That's it. It's just one kid doing their own thing. It's not collaborative. And so if you want to make more collaborative kinds of worlds, but that also have structure, this is the way to do it, is have these sort of like sectioned kinds of things like this. Okay, then the final bit of knowledge here is providing scaffolding. So you'll notice when you play Hour of Code 2021 and you do that first challenge, you're only able to do the blocks you need. This is really important. So if you open up the default editor, so like let's actually go demonstrate this here. You can go to Microsoft Make Code, which is great. And by the way, that goes very quickly on my internet. But if yours is slow, this is something a lot of people don't realize is you actually are connecting to the internet to go to the MakeCode website to bring up the code editor. It's like adding a web browser into the game. So if you have very slow internet or a lot of people connecting to it, that may take a long time, and kids will often get frustrated at that step. So it's just something to think about when you're choosing where you're doing your workshops. Here we go. So when a kid starts out with this, particularly younger kids doing block code, this is insanely overwhelming. Like if you just go to agent alone, look at how much stuff is in here. There's so many blocks, and then like there's even an advanced tab for other things, and like they do have a search function, which is helpful, but the associational search is not totally there. Anyway, what we want to do is have a tutorial where like it's like in the ones where you download, the official ones from Microsoft, where there's a limited number of blocks. We want them just having the blocks that they need to solve the problem that you presented for them, or just enough that it's not overwhelming and that they don't get totally blown away by what's going on in this. So the way that we do this is if there's a block you need or want, we can kind of cheat. So if I go to agent and this agent turn left, I'm just going to go ahead and plop this in here. And if I switch this over to the JavaScript code, I can get something I can really use. So right here, we have this agent.turn, left turn. That I can copy and I can use that later. And I'm going to show you where I use it in a second. So you can basically set up whatever blocks you want them to use, and you're going to copy the literal JavaScript code versions of those blocks. And then we're going to plop them into this thing. So this is makecode.com/tutorial-tool. All the links for this presentation, of course, will be in the description. But you'll notice over here, we can switch this to a Minecraft released. And look, it's the code editor. And so we can add in some different templating to make this set up. So I've got a number of tutorials in here. One of which is like if you want to reset where the robot starts, this is a really handy reset block, which is you'll notice in a lot of their tutorials, the Microsoft tutorials, when the robot gets messed up, you pull out a radio and you reset them. This is a simpler way of doing that. But here I also have a make code tutorial, and I have some example text. So I'm going to copy that over and just plop this in here. And if I hit run, oh, we have to get rid of that close thing. You'll notice it's cut it down. So we've done a few things here. So first of all, you'll notice that up at the top, it's stripped down where they don't have the exit button. They're kind of given these instructions, and they can go to between different steps, and you can tell them what to do at each step, which is really helpful. The format for this over here, it's rendering what I'm designing on the left on the right. This is kind of like the markdown that GitHub uses, which is part of why I recognize parts of it. So you can do things like I can put in a comment up here using these brackets. This is the same as HTML, and so that won't actually be recognized by it. The three little marks and then template is where you can put templated code. So whatever the kid is given to start out with in their like little workspace here, you can put that here. So you could copy that like I showed before with when you switch from block mode to Java mode, you copy the Java mode code. If you put some of that in there, this is what they'll get every time they go. I really like putting teleport agent to player because one of the biggest problems I've noticed kids have is the agent gets lost in who knows where, and the kid has no idea where they are. So this is a way to help, like every time they're doing something, you can bring the agent back to the kid. You can bring the robot back to the kid. And then you can also choose then what blocks they're able to have. So if I go to blocks, there's only 4 here. If I go to agent, there's like some stuff, but not too much stuff. If I go to loops, we've got a few, etc. Now, there's some funny things like this little snippet of code, the 0 = 0. You can't actually just write 0 = 0 in the template coding here. You have to wrap everything in a loop for the thing to see it, for it to render it. So I just put everything in if loops. So I've put 0 = 0 in an if loop, and when I did that, these 3 things, they just magically showed up. I have no idea why, but it works, and it's great. Likewise, if I did if variable, and look, we get variables when I do that. The variable section shows up. I still have yet to figure out how to put the search box in here, or how to put like an agent in the full version. There's subheaders. And I don't know how to do that yet. So if anybody knows, I'm all ears. Please give me feedback. And if there is some secret place that Microsoft keeps all the information on how to do this, please share it. I would love to share it with as many people as I possibly can. Anyway, so we can adjust this, and like so, if I go back to the game here, if I want to put something else in here, on animal or the spawn animal thing. Here we go. We'll just do that. So we got this mobs.spawn chicken. I'm going to try this live. This is the first time I've done this, so who knows if it's going to work for this one. I'm going to go ahead and stick this in at the end here. And let's see if I can run it, what it does. So look at that. There we have it. We have mobs, and now that spawn animal mob is now available as a code snippet for the base tutorial. So once you are happy with your base template, you go up here and you share this URL. So that's going to generate a URL that then if we go to that, it gives you that template. So there you go. This is what you can sort of then preview it here. But that also can be given to the game through the level, the world settings. So I'm going to show that in a minute. But that's how we do that. So the other thing that I want to note that is kind of like a backdoor, I've found if you just don't tell kids, they don't really pay attention to it. So it's kind of nice. It's like a thing where you can unleash it if something's not working, but they don't know. If you go through all these steps, like if I hit this button and I hit finish, it actually opens up the full block editor. So everything comes back. So if kids are savvy, they can figure that out. I don't know if there's a way to prevent that. Anyway, once you're happy with your tutorial, you can just copy this link, and we're going to then put that in a configuration file. All right, so the next step is we're going to go into Minecraft. Now, presumably, you've already created a level in order to complete this step. So you might have created or found a level or created a level in Java using some of those advanced tools and imported it in, and it should be available in your worlds. These worlds are stored on your computer locally. It is hard to find them. So again, going back to the website where I've got all the wonderful cool things on how this all works that I figured out. If you go to the root URL here, this Education Edition, scroll down a little ways, you can get right here where the Education Edition files are kept. You do start and run. So should we just be able to get, there we go, on Windows. And there's also a similar, in Finder, you can do the same thing, like where you go to directory in OS X. And you go to run, and you can then, in the run prompt, just literally copy and paste that address that it gives you in the file system. That's going to take you to your Education Edition games directory. And under here, we have our Minecraft worlds. Look at these worlds. They're not very friendly in their names. We don't know what they are. But the good news is if we close the game, I can relabel this. We should be able to call this. Actually, I'm going to double check to see what it is. If I double click on it, I can go in here and see where it says level name. It says video demo. But I might later not know that that's what it is. So we're going to call this video demo. All right. Anyway, so I've got my video demo directory here. And this is what the world looks like. Now, one of the good things about the Bedrock and Education platform is they're really, really super, super efficient. So all the world stuff is in this little DB file. And I don't actually know how to mess with that. I don't think you can open it very easily. There are other programs that can be used for it. And then the general world settings are in this level.dat. And you can open that up with things like an NBT editor if you want to change some of the characteristics of the world. But what we're going to do today is actually something else. In some of the example worlds, like if you download Hour of Code 2019, take a look at theirs. Now, theirs is a little different. It's got some other stuff in here. They've got these resource packs and behavior packs. Resource packs are a way of making the world look different. So if I go into resource packs, we should be able to find some textures and items. There we go. The armor stand looks like that in this one. So you can make stuff look different. And then behavior packs is a little bit more complicated. They're it's typically where all the instrumentation to make the world do what it does goes. So there will be it's all command block code of variations on that, and then some JSON files that are configurations. To understand them, you kind of have to be a Microsoft developer, I think, because there's no reference really explaining it. But it's the stuff like when you're doing Hour of Code, the first challenge will be a quest. It is a kind of function. So I should be able to go here. And we go to functions, and here we have quest 1, and then quest 1 has these different files and functions and elements to it. And I can open these up. Okay, so here's what this one does. These are command block code. So code builder is telling it to navigate, and actually, look at this. This is an example. It's going to a tutorial. Look at that. It's actually what we're using. It's linking to that. Okay, so that's kind of the foreshadowing of what we really want to do. Now, there's an easier way than doing all this crazy stuff where they build out multiple functions and stages. If you're like a wicked leap hacker, maybe you can do all this. I'm not that smart. What I've done instead is I go up here. There's this wonderful education.json that you can just stick in the file. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go up one level, and I'm going to stick that in my video demo right there. And then if I open that up, And almost any of the Hour of Code ones will do this. Okay. So Hour of Code 2021 is a better template than this one, but that's okay. This will still do part of what we need to do. So you'll notice it has some configuration in here. Now, a JSON is just like a configuration file. It just kind of tells other things of the program what to do. One of the downsides is they're not very good for reverse engineering. Like, I don't know what else could be under commands. There's no documentation telling me that anything other than hidden from player can go there. So this is where, by the way, we can say there are commands that a player can't do. So all commands are hidden from the player in Hour of Code 2019. We know that because that star means all. Now you could change it to be like just give. Only give is hidden from the player, or any of the other command blocks can be hidden. Anyway, so over here, this tutorial link, that actually, it's like this. We can change this guy, that link right there, can be our tutorial link. And what that does is the default, what they're going to get when they bring up the code editor now will be this thing. So already we've limited their blocks. Now, there's still some stuff we could do with this, because one thing that I like to do is I put the kids in adventure mode so they can't affect the world, but we give the robot the power to affect the world. So in other words, the only way they can do anything cool is by using the robot, which means they got to learn to code. So that's what I think is a very powerful creative constraint. And once they kind of get over the, oh, but I want to kill zombies moment, they'll get into it often. So I'm going to go ahead and find a better example. Here we go, the park map. That'll have one. So here's some better. So same idea as before. And again, I'll put a link up to this code. So we can give commands. We can say hidden from player, hidden from automation. Automation is things like command blocks and functions as part of the level. And then hidden from player is like what the player can type into chat as a command. So you can say specific commands you want to enable and not enable. This one is really important. That we don't want WS server, WebSocket server hidden from the player. If it is, then you can't launch that Minecraft classroom mode with the custom map that you're doing here. So make sure that is there. That is really important. I also think it's helpful to not let them change their game mode by a command. So make sure that one's over there. They often don't know any of the other stuff. I often let them do give commands, actually, because I don't mind if they want to give themselves blocks and stuff. But anyway, you could choose what you want to stick in there. And then this is the one that I really wish I knew more of what can be possible. But it looks like you can tell the agent to have the capability, to have the permission to modify blocks. And so if you have it set up like this, the agent can destroy and build and do stuff in the world. However, the player cannot if they're on adventure mode. So this is a nice compromise of forcing that structure. Now, it's not perfect. If the player's in adventure mode and they try to tell the robot to have a specific inventory, so here I can give an example of one that will not work. Yeah, this one, this agent set block right here, the agent set blocker item to count whatever and slot whatever. This actually doesn't work if the player is in adventure or in survival mode. They have to be an operator in creative mode, apparently, to use that for the robot. So this is not perfect. There are workarounds where, like, I have command block dispensers where you hit a button and it gives you whatever block is on the next to that command block. You could do stuff like that, and then it actually can be kind of creative. You can say, oh, well, you only have so many resources available. Here's this chest. You only get 64 wool. You got to solve the problem with only that much resource. So you can kind of get around it, but I don't know how much of the functionality is fully available with this combination that I've got. But it is a pretty good way to lock things down. And if we can ever get a hold of the documentation on this, I bet you we can customize it even more. I bet you that there is an ability in here, oops, sorry, this one, that you could give it permission. There's probably some other permission like, can generate blocks or can whatever command this uses, can modify inventory, etc. So if anybody does know that, please tell me, I want to know. Anyway, so once we've got this set up like this, I'm going to actually copy all this and let's see here. Make sure I'm in the right world. Video demo, education. I'm going to paste all this, and I want to go to this tutorial. Okay. Let's plop this in. There we go. Saving it, closing all this. No. Okay, and we're going again. So let's go ahead and load up our video demo world that I have now modified. And if I hit play, let's see what happens. Okay, here we are, back as we were before, falling off the mountain. Load up that code editor. Okay, check it out. So it has used the template that I gave it. And we've got, agent commands and some limits. I've got that one mob command, etc. Now it should also block me from certain other commands. Game mode to survival. Look at that. I can't do it. I've blocked that command. So this gives them a limited set of blocks, and so now I'm the world creator, so I'm in creative mode, and that's actually good. I would then go here if I want to I'd start hosting, and then invite the kids to join as per the normal way you do all this. But they would be in adventure mode, assuming I have set that here. So the default game, well, actually, you can't even see it. So when I made the level, it was set to that. Now it actually can't be changed because I put in this education.json. Now, when they join, you can toggle what their level mode and version is, like if they're a visitor, etc. But this would lock them into adventure mode, essentially, if I made the world originally in adventure mode. And then they got to use the robot to affect it. So there you go. So one of the things you might be having the kids do is have the robot move around in a regular pattern. And when this happens, the robot will often get lost and be on some other end of the level, and you want a reset block to put them back. So I have a short little video here on how to make a simple reset block that also adjusts its orientation. So you match it to a little pink magenta arrow, and you can see it, it's going to face that way, and it's always going to go back to that block. The final thing that I'd like to emphasize is that, you can show things on the screen up front as an instructor, but kids move at different paces often, groups or whatever else, and sometimes it's really nice to have another visual reference you can point at. So I'm a big fan of printouts. So you slap something on the table next to the kid, and they can use it as a reference. They can look at it, see, hey, what does that block do? You can say, hey, try using this one. They actually can be really good for unplugged coding activities where you cut it all up and you rearrange them, and they can actually write their program with the sheets of paper. But this is just a really helpful way for kids to if they miss something, to keep up on it and figure out where they were and what they're doing. So I would recommend this as a method. This video has been made possible by a number of National Science Foundation grants that have been awarded to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. The College of Education has several projects going on related to Minecraft. If you think this is interesting, you might be interested in MCEE, What If Hypothetical Implementations of Minecraft. This related project allows participants to explore radically different worlds like exoplanets and what-if Earth scenarios, as well as learn how to observe like a scientist and understand different important scientific variables. If this sounds interesting to you, there's a link in the description below.